As gender-based violence continues to plague our society, Carling Black Label reaffirms its commitment to tackling this pervasive issue head-on with the launch of the hashtag #NoExcuse2023 campaign. Far beyond the confines of the annual 16 Days of Activism, the brand emphasizes that their dedication to addressing GBV is an ongoing year-round initiative. To share more on the initiative, we're joined by Steve Komphela, South African football coach. Steve, a very good morning. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Good morning to you and the viewers.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure having you, and I'm actually glad that we have you here in studio to have this conversation, a very important conversation, because the fight against gender-based violence should not only be confined to December, to 16 days. It should be an ongoing conversation. So, as a very popular, sports personality, what made you join this campaign? What made you to be a part of it?
Hey, Pio, it's very sensitive, not only very important as you put it, but in my opinion, and the rest of those who advocate for no abuse, we feel it is a responsibility of each one of us, especially men included.
Yeah.
Now, coming from a sporting environment, in soccer, and where there's predominantly 99% people involved in such sports, we're dealing with males and men. Now, we are saying, how can we then create an engagement? How can we create some sort of level of education so that these brothers can then start to bond, be aware of the dangers of abuse? And as such, a campaign of #NoExcuse advocates for that. And I found it very comfortable for me to be part of this because nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect either. But when one of us is standing out and saying, it doesn't help society when men abuse kids, when men abuse children, when men abuse wives, when men are not together, when men lack love, when men cannot pursue things that are building one another, then it doesn't help society. So we are here for that. And as you rightly put it, Mpiwe, that this should not only be for 16 days, man. It can't only be for a year. This thing should be forever. Because it then says to you, you are then breeding a generation that is coming of people of that caliber or nature.
Yes.
So now, as role models, we're living now. But as soon as we leave these worlds, then there's others coming behind us. But what are we living with them? So we live in them with love, we live in them with compassion, with a bond that is unbreakable, so that society can also be solid.
Let's now cut to the chase here, Steve. What exactly is this campaign doing in terms of, taking decisive action against men or against perpetrators of gender-based violence and moving beyond the rhetoric of this campaign? What exactly are you doing, and what's the kind of response that you've received from, in particular, men?
Great question. There's obviously other sectors of society, of community, of government, and all those who then take steps necessary if there are any transgressions. We are not into justice, but we are more in a space where we're trying to create prevention. Before we could actually have men engaging in this particular type of abuse, then facing consequences, can we create a level of awareness before you could even make any choices of saying, no, I'm raising my hand now, or I'm raising my voice, or I'm taking my silence to another level, because silence can also be abusive.
Sure.
These are deep issues and matters that society must come to realize. Now, that is something that is dealt with by other branches, but what we do as people who advocate for this awareness, in my opinion, it's not a campaign, it is a movement. And any movement must be solid, must be loud enough, sensible enough, that everybody can actually, they can relate with, can attach to, and move with. We want to move with as many people as possible.
Yes.
When there's a storm and a surge coming, when trees get broken by a sea or whatever is coming as a form of catastrophe, it ravages everything. It becomes a movement, and at the back of that, everything is flat. So we want to flatten all these evils, all the ills that you find in society, so that when we look back, it is all flat, that when the sun shines, when grass grows, it's green, it's lush, it's clean, that society can then find positives out of that. But listen, it's not, this thing's not going to happen overnight. It is a long process. We have to be patient. It's going to take time, but it needs awareness and serious voices. And it should not only be a Steve on TV talking. It should not only talk to the mind. It should not only address the physical pain. It must go deeper and touch the soul. If the soul can be touched, the body will be saved. If the body is saved, because the mind is aware of what saves the body, it is important that we men become very strong, be people with love, support those with us. And what I always believe is that if you have nothing positive to say to me, say nothing.
Yeah.
That's the only way.
Sure.
And avoid the first fight. And love those around you. And nobody's perfect. When they commit errors, try rectify those errors. If they consistently happen, find a solution to say, how can I align things that this does not create friction? It is at the back of that friction that violence starts.
You know, Steve, it's a good thing to see that we are not tackling this fight against gender-based violence through a single medium.
Yep.
I mean, we're tackling it through different forms, from all angles, you know, through all mediums. And one of them is football. And as an experienced football player and coach, what's your perspective on how football and sport can be harnessed, you know, as the fight against gender-based violence?
Football is a movement, Piwe. Education is a movement. Without proper education, society will never progress. Without football sending good messages, football does not serve the purpose it is meant for. Good enough, you play a match, you lose, play a match, you win. But what is it that you stand for when you get on the park? Your shirt is written behind Komphela number 4. Okay, the type of game you play as a Komphela number 4, you're a defender, they know that this guy can head the ball, can tackle. So each time they see a number 4 in a Komphela, that's what you stand for. But we have to stretch football beyond that. When you look at UEFA or anywhere else, on their sleeve here, they've got respect. Their bips are written respect. What is that for? We are putting excuse here. It is not just a slogan. It is to create visibility and awareness, that we educate and conscientize so that it creates an engagement. If I go to a football club, like I'm going to go to training now, and I don't address these men and make them understand that they have a responsibility to sharpen up their core human values. Because a man with core human values that are good and positive, a man who's accountable, responsible, who's respectful and all that, breeds a nation of that caliber. But we should not also forget that sports is just a microscopic reflection of society. The ills you find in sports are the ills dragged from society. You cannot look at sports in isolation to it is a sport with ills and a society that is perfect. No, the reflection of society is in its sports. However, we can then use sport as we do to go back and impact the society the other way around. Advocate for no gender-based violence, no excuse for abuse. For these people that when he goes home, I'm sitting here, somebody's watching TV and says, but wait a minute, who's this guy? Oh, Steve. What? He was wearing this T-shirt yesterday. What is it about? Then it says the other opportunity in PWA is to go on. They have a course that they run, which is a brilliant course that everybody must go through. I would recommend. It is on www.noexcuses.com. I went through that test. It teaches you about how a man, how he has to be, how to treat a lady or people around you and all that. It's a beautiful test. These are tools. We're trying to equip people. With knowledge, we act better. With information, we do act better. But information and knowledge will take you to a level of wisdom.
All right, Steve, lovely chatting to you, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Great pleasure.
And we certainly hope that this will be an ongoing conversation all year long, because there's absolutely no excuse to be a perpetrator of gender-based violence. Great chatting to you, and to keep up the good work.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, the hashtag No Excuse campaign actively engages with South African society throughout the year, reflecting the brand's commitment to being a catalyst for change on a continuous basis.